Thanks for being here. As JJ said, I'm Nicole Preston. I'm the General Manager of Community Impact Newspaper, so it's a pleasure to be here. We're honored to be asked. I'll go over some of the forum formats for the candidates. So what we will be doing is we'll having a question and answer session for each position. During each segment, each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening and closing statement, and then 90 seconds to respond to the questions that's asked of them. Each candidate will receive 3 questions. Candidates will be organized in ballot order, and then we will alternate the questions. So, if we can get started, we would like to start with position 5, Rashmi Gupta, Walter Cook, and Dr. Shelley Sekula-Gibbs. My timekeeper is Melissa Boucher. She'll be holding up the 30-second, 15-second, and the stop time card. So look to her. And candidates, please state the position you're running for during your introduction. For more information, there's a voter guide on page 54 that lists all the candidates as well in the newspaper. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chamber members. I'm Rashmi Gupta, and I'm standing for Township, the Woodlands Township, vote position 5. I am a resident of here in the Woodlands for the past 22 years, and this is my time to give back to the community. I have a successful residential commercial real estate for the past 17 years. This is home for me. I'm here to stay. I'm rooted in this community with my business and residential. I worked with a lot of business organizations. I have relocated them into the Woodlands community. Even international businesses have been relocated by me here, only because they trusted me. And you can trust me as well. It is very, very important that with my business and economics background, I have scrutinized the township budget. And after my research, I find that we will be in deficit going forward. It is very important for me to find resources to compensate for these deficits. 30 seconds, I better hurry up. As long that I'm a resident here, I understand the pulse of this community. And I would say our reputation for school is paramount. I support the school bond fully, so does the chamber. I'm Rashmi Gupta. I'm rooted in this community. Position 5. I want to earn your vote.
Mr. Cook.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chamber of Commerce, for putting on this forum. These are excellent ways of us candidates getting to know the community us. My name is Walter Cook. I'm a lawyer, been practicing law for 45 years. I got here with my wife and 3 boys in 1990. Practiced law down in Houston until about 2000 and moved my law practice up here, and I've been here ever since. I've served on numerous nonprofit boards, was a hometown hero, named a hometown hero. I don't know if I was a hometown hero, somebody named me a hometown hero. I accepted the honor. And served 2 years on the Woodlands Community Association, one of the HOAs that preceded the Woodlands Township. I think there are 3 main issues that are going to be facing the township in the coming 2 years, and these are the issues I hope you focused on in selecting your candidate, selecting who to vote for. One is balancing the budget. We're going into a period of deficit budgets in the Woodlands, at least until 2025, which as far as the prediction goes. This is caused by the fact that the Woodlands is pretty well developed out. We're not going to see big increases in appraised value. And also because our sales tax revenue, which is 40% of our tax revenue, is falling like a rock. Amazon. So it's predicted that expenses will exceed income clear through 2025 up to about $3.5 million. So we're gonna have to have people on the board that can analyze that budget carefully and be able to make hard decisions. Incorporation is the big issue. The next big issue, I'm against it. We can't afford it to begin with, and it doesn't confer any benefit. Hopefully we'll have some discussion on that today. And finally, flooding, which is an issue not only for those affected by the flood, but by the rest of us, because when the newspapers headline the Woodlands is flooding, the public doesn't distinguish between the houses that are actually flooded and the rest of us that may be affected by flooding to decrease in property value. So hopefully we'll have discussion on those three hot issues today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Chamber, my fellow Chamber members, for offering us the opportunity to come to you today. My name is Dr. Shelley Sekula Gibbs, and I am running for the Township Board Position 5, and I ask you for your vote and your support. My goal in running for the Woodlands Township is to keep the unique, wonderful Woodlands wonderful, and to make it even better for future generations. I have experience in government and in business. I have worked as a board certified dermatologist for 30 years. I ran my own medical practice. I had up to 17 employees and 2 clinics, and I also served on the Houston City Council for 3 terms and was elected to be the first female physician in the U.S. House, or voting in the U.S. House of Representatives. During that time, I was honored to be able to collaborate with many good people and to reduce property taxes 3 times while on the council and implement a 4.5% revenue cap that has saved taxpayers in the Houston area over $700 million. I bring that leadership experience here, and if I'm honored to earn your vote, I will work hard to help us manage our budget and face the challenging headwinds that are before us. And as I said, to keep the Woodlands wonderful and maintain and sustain George Mitchell's vision of the best hometown, the 4th best hometown in the United States right now, where we can all live together, work together, play, pray, and learn together. My name is Dr. Shelley Sekula Gibbs. My website is Dr. Shelley for Township, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, candidates. Okay, the first question, each candidate will have 90 seconds. We'll start with Ms. Gupta. And the question is, why are you running for the board of directors, and what do you hope to accomplish as a member?
Great question. Why I am running for this board position is I want to give back to the community who has given me so much. Second, I am not comfortable with what is happening at the township board position. I do want to make this as non-partisan, and I want people like you and me who do not have vested interest in or political aspiration. I'm not a politician. I have my heart and soul in this community. This is home for me, whether it is school or in corporation. I would do what is right for the resident. That is where I stand today, and that is one of my main reasons to run for this township board, to represent the voice of the resident. Thank you.
Thank you. I've considered running for the township for several years, but now I've got some time and I decided to throw my hat in the ring. My 3 goals are really pretty simple. 1, work with the other township board members in the challenge we face with the budget deficits I've just described. We're going to have to work together, look hard, check every line item, and that's going to be a tough task and tough decisions will be required. Next, I want to slow down this rush to incorporation. For 2 years now, the township is focused almost solely on incorporation, spent a lot of money on various studies. I guess the tide will continue, but I want to be a voice on the board for checking every box, making sure we have every factor taken into consideration as we go through the costs of incorporation, and try to point out that there's no benefit from incorporation. And finally, I think we need to get more aggressive on this flooding issue. The township already has the power of a flood control district. I'm not suggesting that it ousts the mud from its jobs, But there's certainly more the township can do to address flooding in the woodlands. For one thing, the township can work with the DSC and the CSC to create floor elevations. Right now, the residential design standard says your floor elevation, first floor elevation, has to be 14 inches above grade. Why not bring it up, the floor elevation up to where it's out of any 100, 500-year floodplain? That would be a simple fix that would prevent new structures from being built in these floodplains.
Dr. Sekula gets the same question.
It is important to recognize that the township is not a city yet. When I was on the city of Houston, we had a budget of about $4 billion. Here our budget is around $130 million, but it's basically the same thing. We don't spend any more than we have. We always have to have a balanced budget. We can't pass the budget unless it is balanced. And the Township Board has done an excellent job in reducing our property tax rate over the last 9 years by 30% sequentially, and my hat is off to the Township Board for doing that. Going forward, we do have some softening in our sales tax revenues, and we also have a slight decrease that will continue because we are approaching build out and we're not building more properties that are completed. So our residential tax base is not exploding like it is across the rest of Montgomery County. That said, there are creative, innovative ways for us to increase and bring in more revenue, especially sales tax. And one of those is that the Amazon and people who sell on the internet, we will get a piece of that, from the state, and that will come into our coffers this year and going forward. It is also a very valuable possibility that we will have a expansion of the convention center and a new performing arts center. Performing arts that will be 1,500 square feet that will bring in more revenue to us in sales taxes. So those kind of creative, innovative visions are important, and I look forward to working with the board on them.
Thank you. Second question to Mr. Cook. What are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
Well, we've already mentioned them, incorporation, budget, and flooding are the two main issues that I see on the horizon. There are obviously others, but those are the three we're going to have to face. Certainly the budget is going to be a big item because of the decrease in appraised value, increase in appraised value, and the drop in the sales tax. We've talked about the budget. We've talked a little bit about incorporation. I see no benefit in incorporation, and it makes no sense to incorporate when we've got a budget problem. Incorporation will cause our expenses to rise. Our government will cost more. There's absolutely no question about that. The only question is how much more. We don't need to be launching off into an experiment that we don't need. As Dr. Gibbs pointed out, the township has done a great job reducing our property taxes and governing the woodlands. There's no reason to jump off into a new form of government in this time of budget constraint. Also flooding, the township's got to be more aggressive on flooding. There is a township drainage task force that's done a good job bringing all the players together, but the township needs to take leadership. We need to come up with a plan to address flooding, not only preventing new structures from being built in the 500-year, 100-year floodplain, but also coming up with a way to create reservoirs, detention facilities to ameliorate flooding for existing structures. That's going to be a long, expensive process, and if we don't start today, we'll never get it done. Thank you.
Dr. Sekula Gibbs, same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes,
okay.
please.
What are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
Is it the main two or three?
What are the main issues?
Just
Yeah. 2
okay.
years.
Well, thank you very much. I think the top issues that we are facing as Woodlands residents and the Township Board is our jobs, and that means a situation like we have with Anadarko. It is very important that we work as a unit, as a collaborative, united community to keep Occidental, who purchased Anadarko, here. We need to represent ourselves as the greatest, most wonderful hometown in the United States and keep them here. If they do happen to leave, it could be a very difficult thing for us. So right now, it looks positive, and I'm encouraged by that, so we need to keep that going and bring new, innovative, high-paying jobs to our community. Another is traffic. It's very important that we work hard to not allow roads that are being built in to the Woodlands to unnecessarily burden our community with traffic. That slows us down in getting to work. It also brings in crime and pollution. So that's a very important area that I will work on. And finally, it's, I would say, taxes. And the most important thing there is to keep the jobs up. So sales tax is good. And to make sure that if there's any kind of renovations going, that we support that so that our property tax base will be continue to be reinvigorated. Thank you.
Ms. Gupta. You want me to repeat the question?
If you could.
Okay. What are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
According to me, the most important issue that we have is to make this vote a non-partisan vote so that it is represented by people who have the heart and soul on that vote and not for political aspiration. Certainly, incorporation, it will take time. We do not want to rush into it. If we have a deficit budget right now, how can we afford extra $40 million for incorporation as and when it happens? That is my question to the resident. Another task that is facing us is the basis of our education. I can say for myself, I moved to the Woodlands for the education of the children. And if we are not able to pass a school bond, that gives me concern that why the township board that is comprised of today is not endorsing the biggest asset that we have in the Woodlands. Rest, if the board is healthy, working together, I'm confident we can find solutions for any problem that we have here. And I urge you to please look into this problem that we are facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, third and final question to candidates of position 5, and we'll start with Dr. Sakula Gibbs. Do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing so?
Incorporation is not on the ballot this time, and our studies have not been completed. So I say at this point, we should wait for the studies to be completed. We should use the data and using best practices and analyzing the data carefully, then let the people of the Woodlands make the decision on incorporation. So what are some of the advantages if we incorporate? We become permanently autonomous if we are an independent city, and others like Houston and Conroe cannot ever annex us. Right now, move ahead 38 years, they have Houston and Conroe can annex us and have the legal prerogative to do so. Laws that are passed after the signing of the contract that was signed in 2007 may not have any impact on that contract. And that's part of the fundamentals of contract law. I would say that being independent and autonomous is clearly the most important thing at that time period in 2057. We would also, is my time out? Okay, so 2 seconds to go. So I think that ultimately they'll complete the studies, give it to the people to decide. I trust the people of the Woodlands will make the right decision if given the right data and they understand there will be possibly a little increase in the property tax, but if we were ever annexed, that increase would be 250% from Houston and about 180% from the city of Conroe. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Gupta, you want me to repeat the question? Do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing so?
Well, you must have heard of this incorporation issue for different angles. And what I'm going to give you an angle where I believe that you have to look at your current situation if there is a deficit in the budget and moving forward, we are expecting to go into deeper and deeper deficit. Our responsibility right now should be to reduce expenses and look for revenue sources. How can we make our Woodlands Township Board budget more healthy? If there is a surplus going forward, if it is advantageous, then we may look at it, but as of today, I do not see any sense in incorporation. What we will get, more than what we have, that is a question that I would want people to evaluate. Yes, we will be burdened with extra taxes, and the fear that we will get annexed by Conroe and Houston, that is, I'm sure you all know, is regicide. We will not be annexed to 2057. So hence, what I am not for incorporation, we need to straighten up our house for today, then thinking of future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Cook, do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing so?
I feel the township should not incorporate at this time. There are no advantages. As Ms. Gupta has eloquently pointed out, we can't afford it right now anyway because of the deficit budget situation we're going into. And Dr. Gibbs wants us to believe we're going to be annexed by the city of Houston. Well, as she may know, we have a moratorium agreement with the city of Houston and the city of Conroe that prevents them from even attempting to annex us until, 2058. And Texas law now says that a city cannot simply reach out and annex an area within its extraterritorial jurisdiction unless the people in that area vote to be annexed. So if in 2058 the citizens, the voters of the Woodlands want to be annexed and 50% or more vote for it, well, so be it. I'm not going to be around to worry about it, quite frankly. But the will of the people will decide that question if and when it ever arises. Now, she wants to make us believe that contract law says that the old Texas law that allowed a city to annex area within its extraterritorial jurisdiction without the vote of the people would apply because our moratorium agreements were signed before the new law went into effect. Well, I'm not a dermatologist, but I'm a contract lawyer, and I can tell you that is not the law. That is simply not the law. The old law will have absolutely no effect on the ability of the voters of the Woodlands in 2058 or sometime thereafter to decide whether or not to be annexed by Houston or Conroe.
Thank you. The candidates will now give their closing statements. You have 2 minutes. We'll start with Dr. Sekula Gibbs.
Thank you very much. As you know already by now, my name is Dr. Shelley Sekula Gibbs, and I would like to ask you for your vote and your support for the Position 5 Township Board. I have been a member of the Chamber of Commerce in the Bay Area. I have served on the Bay Area Partnership. I've served on the Houston-Galveston Area Council, and I have worked very hard to help lift up women with scholarships as well as supporting other people in science and math, women's scholarships, and I believe very much in giving back to the community. I think it's important for the Woodlands to stay the unique, wonderful community that you have evolved into and that I feel now lucky enough to be a part of. It's so special, and I pledge to you that I will do everything I can to keep it that way if I'm honored to receive your vote and serve on the board. My motto is put the Woodlands residents first, keep the Woodlands wonderful for us and for our future generations. So thank you very much for the opportunity to visit with you today.
Mr. Cook, the 2-minute closing statement.
Thanks again to the Chamber for this great forum. I want to appeal to you today on my behalf and on behalf of all these candidates in this room. We have been collectively working our tails off to present to you the issues and our perspective on these issues. Now it's your turn to help us out. October 21 starts early voting. It runs through November 1st. On November 5 is Election Day. Each one of us need all of you who support our candidacy to go out, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, put in a yard sign, have a coffee in your house. Do everything you can to support the candidate you favor in these races. This place is huge. We have 110,000 some odd people, and you would be surprised how few people actually know there's an election on November the 5th. So you all have the job of spreading the word and supporting your candidate. I'd love you to support me, but more importantly, support a candidate in this race. Get the word out so that the people of the Woodlands know they have the right to decide their future by voting October 21st or November 1st, early voting, and on November 5th, the election day. Thank you for coming today. I appreciate your vote. We'll have some signs downstairs, other campaign material. The website is www.cookfortownship.com. I've got all kinds of stuff on there that explains my view of the issues. Please check that out if you need more information. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the Woodlands Chambers of Commerce and the candidates here for being present. To be honest, I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned because one of my opponents is already endorsed by 4 sitting directors. And if elected, they will have the majority. And I personally believe that we need to have checks and balances in any organization. That is my biggest concern right now. You should be asking yourself, this is a non-partisan race. Why are people who do not even live in the Woodlands, who live outside the Woodlands, have interest in our hometown election? Ask yourself that question. The township board position should remain non-partisan. It should be governed by people like you and me, who have the heart and soul and who've lived here long enough to understand the seriousness of the problem that we face. Why do we need political consultants for this election? These are my questions that I would like you all to answer that. I love this community. I'm rooted in this community. I hope you will all support and bid for me. Come together, we will find solution. As I've lived 22 years, we made it beautiful, it is wonderful, and we will make it fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we get a round of applause for position? I'd now like to start it in the same format, 2 minutes for an opening and closing statement, 90 seconds response to the question. So we will start with Alan Rochelle.
You did.
Okay,
Thank you
great.
very much. My name is Alan Rochelle, and I'm running for position 6 on the township. I've lived in the Woodlands for 18 years, in full-time, same place, Alden Bridge. I'm the only candidate running out of all 11, actually, that has actually worked at the Chamber of Commerce. Didn't work for the Chamber of Commerce, I worked at the Chamber of Commerce. I was a senior international trade specialist with the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service of the Department of Commerce. That's the export promotion arm of Commerce. And I worked at the Chamber at the old location to get closer to the clients. I worked with many Woodlands companies to help them export, to teach them how to export, to help them get goods out of port, to find them overseas buyers, agents, reps, distributors, joint venture partners. So I've done that for, I guess, about 15 years in the Woodlands, for Woodlands companies like Chevron Phillips, for example. I have a BA and an MA in International Affairs. I have an MBA in Marketing and Management. And I guess I just thought it was time to step up. This is kind of a, to me, this might be an answer to a future question, but to me this was kind of a tipping point for the Woodlands. The fact that we're looking at the prospect of incorporating, at least the issue has been raised. I, like many of us, are not for incorporation at this time. In sum, I would say, I've got 15 seconds left.
Don't waste it on me.
Right. The experience I have is primarily federal. I've also got private sector experience importing school buses from what's now Slovenia. And that's it.
Thank you. Dr. Snyder.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Chamber, for hosting this. My name is Ann Snyder, and my husband and I are 30-year residents in this community that we all call home. We've raised our two children here, and now 6 grandchildren. We have an incredible vested interest in this hometown. We have, as a family, have always been involved in the Woodlands, have no hidden or political agenda other than to be an advocate for all. I've had the unique perspective while I was at the University of Houston, as well as Interfaith of the Woodlands, Interfaith Community Clinic, and part of the ministry staff at my church, to be an advocate for all ages, all socioeconomic, all faiths, and all ethnicities. And that's what the Woodlands was built on, and feel very, very strongly about that. As far as civic or community involvement, I think between Jerry and I, we've touched, as most of you have, almost every civic group in this community because it is open to all, which is very, very important. I looked at my notes in 2015, why I ran then, and it's the very same reason as I'm running now, and that is my top priority has always been safety and law enforcement. It is what makes us so unique. Second has also been the quality of life and preserving what Mr. Mitchell gave, an incredible gift. Years ago, someone asked him, why? Are you doing this for your grandchildren? And he said, no, I'm doing it for my grandchildren's grandchildren. And that's why I'm running for a position since at the Woodlands Township Board re-election. Thank you.
I think I'll remain sitting.
You may.
So, there's something I want to correct. I've kind of reached my limit on something, so I want to, I came here to kind of be impromptu and kind of see what people are saying and then speak from that. But I have to say this, because this has gone on several times, and the person who was up here talking about being nonpartisan, in my opinion, is more about party than anybody I have seen yet. So I want to be clear about that. I do actually take that position. I think being nonpartisan is important. I'm here to be real, authentic, and what that means is, on the incorporation issue, I was told when I came here, or not when I came here right now, but when I started putting my name out there, that there's basically 2 sides of this. And if you say the right thing, you'll have people behind you who are going to support you. There'll be money and people there, and I stood in front of some people, and I refused to say what they wanted me to say. And I knew that if I said the right thing, what's right to them, that I'd get the support that they were willing to throw at me. But I didn't do it. And that's really important because, you know, as we move forward with incorporation, you have these 2 sides, and each side will tell you that their side is absolutely correct. Each side will tell you that there is no benefit to the other side, and that's not true at all. So I'm sure we'll get a chance to get into that. But so I guess the big thing, if I'm talking to a bunch of business people, is to mention about fiscal responsibility. I think that's really important, and that's something I'm going to be stressing a lot. A shortcut to one of the things we do is we take a shortcut to choosing a candidate. So we try and find someone who we believe is trustworthy. I'm a veteran, and I could have died for my country, and I'm hoping that you'll be objective in taking a look at my candidacy.
Thank you. First question to Mr. Rochelle. Why are you running for the board of directors, and what do you hope to accomplish as a member?
Can I sit? I think I'll stand. Okay. I was motivated to run actually by my neighbor who suggested I run. And I don't want to say incensed about the push towards incorporation, but I'm a little disturbed by it. It seems to be a little perhaps self-serving, and maybe presumptive in the way it's being presented. There is no reason to rush into incorporation. As someone said, we're under the moratorium with Conroe and Houston until 2057, and on top of that, the state passed a law saying that we cannot be annexed unless we vote to be annexed. Furthermore, there were some things the board did. This is part of my motivation, where they put aside a $15.1 million reserve fund for incorporation. It's nice to have contingencies. Would have been nice if that had been spent elsewhere, since we may not incorporate. And they also purchased some land with a building on it that could conceivably be used as a city hall. So that was my main motivation. On the other hand, I mean, we've got other issues. We've got the issues of flood mitigation. We've got the issue of maintaining our clean, pure water. And we've also got an issue of increasing, as we grow, we have the issue of increasing traffic. Thank you.
Dr. Snyder, why are you running for re-election for the board of directors, and what do you hope to accomplish?
Thank you. You know, when I stop and think, and this summer when my husband and I decided we would do this one more time, it is one, primarily for continuity. This is a very, I don't want to say fragile, but a very life-changing moment that we're in if we decide as we move forward. One, for continuity, is leadership change. Right now, both our fire chief as well as our president general manager of the township, who is leaving April of 2020, is being looked at to, we just added a search firm. Also, incorporation. We have, as many candidates have spoken, is this a good thing or not? I think it's up to the residents to decide if the benefits outweigh the cost of incorporation. We've gone through and we've done the planning study. We've spent a lot of money in hiring two different firms to share that with. And the third reason is what I said in my opening statement, is the quality of life. I want to ensure that the quality of life that we enjoy today continues for our children in the future.
Mr. Chumley, why are you running for the board of directors, and what do you hope to accomplish as a member?
Good question. So some of the issues that have been mentioned so far, we've kind of identified what the problems are. On my website, you'll actually see some of the answers to those. Why run? You know, when I was a kid, my dad was a preacher, and we moved around different places. And I was kind of being raised to be a leader, and it was thought that I would grow up and be a leader in the church that my dad was a part of. So from a very young age, I was going to business meetings and being encouraged and all this from a very, very young age. Also, right now, I'm working on a PhD in leadership studies. Through some of the readings that we've been doing, I really didn't want to do this, but so I had a responsibility to really come out and do something like this. And it's not easy to do, but I had a lot of encouragement through that program to really step up and be what they're expecting us to be. Another thing is that I was asked to by several people, so I decided I'll go ahead and do that. As far as accomplishing, it's really hard to say what will get accomplished. You're one person out of several, but one of the things I would like to do is HGAC is try and get us on there one way or another, because there's $350 million, 96% of which is passed through.
Thank you. The second question will go to Dr. Snyder. First, what are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
Well, I think they've been stated, but we'll go through. One is incorporation. Two is flood mitigation, and three is mobility. They're all major issues that we as a township board must provide information and solutions as we work forward. With regard to the flood mitigation, I know we've started, but we have not allocated the funding that can help with that. And that is something that we as a township board need to work with other agencies. There's other very strong agencies in our county that can help us address this. Second, with mobility, people will say, because of all the traffic on Woodlands Parkway or some of the things that have happened, that's why we have crime. That is not the major reason we have, and the Woodlands Parkway will never become 1960. That is not true. It is not true. It is something that we as a township, though, mobility and traffic is an issue, and we need to work with other entities within our county to address that. And the third, as I've shared before, that has been the safety and law enforcement. It is critical that we continue the high standards of safety and law enforcement in the Woodlands.
Thank you. Mr. Chumley, same question. What are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
I agree. We've hit many of them. So debt is a big one for me, and reducing that deficit. Of course, as business people, you're quite aware there's a time for debt and there's a time for maybe taking capital in order to do something that you're trying to accomplish that will give a return on investment. Now is the time to reduce the debt. Incorporation is a big issue, but I think even bigger than the incorporation issue is itself is the political divisiveness that occurs in a lot of what you see up here, where someone takes a stand for or against a corporation. A lot of that is very much to do with this divisiveness, and I think that's more of an issue itself, perhaps, than incorporation. Flood mitigation. If you go to my website again, it's Montgomery County Flood Control District. We need somebody, some entity that's going to be able to coordinate all of those activities. Mobility, there's a lot of issues that people brought up, so it'd be impossible to go through them all right now. But mobility, I think, is something where, first of all, there's something called I don't remember the name, advanced traffic control system. It's computerized. Right now, we're running off of a system that's run by a guy in Conroe, and he times each one. So there's a computerized system that is available, that they offer this deal where they'll completely come in and change everything, and if you don't like it, they'll come back and change it back to the old system. The reason why they offer that is because they've never gone back to another system.
Thank you. Mr. Rochelle, do you feel what are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
Well, in the short term, it'll be the deficit for sure. We've got to look at all of our programs, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm a proponent of zero-based budgeting. Otherwise, we've got, of course, the incorporation issue, which doesn't have to be an issue in the next 2 or 3 years. It's been made an issue. I'd like to put it to bed until it becomes an issue. We don't have to vote on incorporation for 38 years or so, so it's not an issue. Otherwise, flood mitigation, yes, we've got to work with the entities we have that control flooding. Harris County is better situated in that regard. They have a flood district. I believe Montgomery County has got several different entities you have to work among, and we may have to talk to the state about creating some other kind of organization to make it happen. Otherwise, we've got the issue of transport. I call it public transportation, and I was for about 14, 15 years working for the U.S. Department of Transportation, what is now the Federal Transit Administration, and they administer planning and capital purchase grants for transportation. I believe the township has used some of that funding through the FTA for their commuter buses. So a lot of things we can look at. Again, we've got to do zero-based budgeting for everything. Everything's on the table.
Thank you. Mr. Chumley, third and final question. Do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing so?
So should we incorporate? Is that ever? Is that now? I mean, right now, absolutely not. Because it's like if you want to go buy a TV, you'd want to know how much it costs. We don't know how much it costs. To me, it's somewhat ridiculous when you have someone come out and make a statement about, I want to incorporate or not incorporate, when they don't even have the full facts yet. And I kind of separate the facts into three different categories. One is the legal. Amy Lecoq is here. I said that right, Lecoq. And she's done a great job in gathering some of those facts and making them available to people as far as the legal issues. But there's also the political / practical. And then there's also the, what I call the political. And so on that, to that extent, there are people, for example, I have a daughter, she is willing to pay an extra $1,000 for a certain type of fender on her car. Okay, so we have certain values in the Woodlands. I've been knocking on doors. There's a guy, he just wanted to be a city. He had no, any additional criteria, no cost benefit analysis to it. It's just, that's what he wanted. And there's other people on the other end that just don't want it. I do like the idea that he had mentioned on the previous question about zero-based budgeting. And I forgot what question I had.
The township should incorporate.
Should it incorporate? I think we have to wait until we get the information to make a good decision.
Thank you. Mr. Rochelle, same question. Do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of doing so?
I think I said there's no rush before to incorporate. Tell me if I'm wrong. We could incorporate. There's an advantage to it. As a city, we would have a stronger voice with the Houston and Galveston Area Council, which is the regional planning organization that divvies up the federal and state funds. That's a good thing. Another plus would be, it would be putting some teeth into our covenants, because right now, if you call up and complain about fireworks or something else, the sheriff's gonna say, because I know him, I've told him, and he says, no, you gotta call the township, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and I don't think they're gonna answer. If they were, there's nothing they can do about it. So there are advantages to incorporating. The question is, does the benefit outweigh the cost? And as far as I'm concerned, if it doesn't, then there's no sense doing it. We ought to be able to either keep our tax rates the same or lower and have the same or better services. Otherwise, I see no benefit in incorporating. Oh, I have more time?
Yeah, 15 seconds.
Oh, okay. I'm done.
Dr. Snyder, same question. You want me to repeat it? Do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing so?
Sitting on the board, you all know that we're in the process. We've hired a consulting firm, in fact, our second one, to share with us the pros and cons of what we will look like if we do incorporate. My stance has always been similar as what was just stated. You will have to decide if the benefits outweigh the cost. At our December meeting, Novak at that time will share the projected cost, as well as share with you finalize the calculator. But in addition to that, there will be franchise fees. A city must have franchise fees. There's no if or and. So in addition to the tax increase, there will be franchise fees. Do the benefits of sitting on the HGAC at the Houston Galveston Area Council, is it worth it? I really think that there's no rush on a personal note, and have been very vocal with that. But as a board member, I think you as residents will need to decide. We have until 2057. State law in the 85th and 86th legislation session said that we as residents will vote. And if we don't want to become a city at that time, a part of Houston or Conroe, it won't happen. And I think you all need to remember that.
Thank you. Now for candidates' closing statements, we will start with Mr. Trumbull. You have 2 minutes.
Great. Again, my name is Tom Chumley. I'm running for position 6, as are these two. My website, I would really ask that you take a look at that. It's the woodlands4tom.site, and the 4 is a number 4. I've been out knocking on doors and talking with people, and there seems to be a lot of agreement here on some of the issues. But I'm increasingly coming across people that are saying that we just need to change things. That some people have been around for a while and we need a new face in there. One of the quotes, interestingly, I looked at from this forum from 2015 and 2017, or no, it was 2017. It said, and I'm quoting, said, "I looked at my notes a couple of weeks ago to see if I still was where I was 2 years ago, and it's the very same." And the same thing was said again tonight. And so I think that is something that I'm just hearing from people as I knock on doors, that people want to see some difference. They want to see some things improve in some ways, and I think I'm a person that can do that. So please, I haven't asked a single person yet to vote for me. I was about to ask you to vote for me. I just ask that you be objective as you go forward and look at what's available and the issues. My website is the most comprehensive that I've seen, and if you go on there, I think you'll see not only the problems and all the issues, but some of the answers that we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Snyder.
Well, thank you for coming this afternoon and for being here. As Tom just said, I am who I am. I don't change with the wind blowing. I'm very honest, very transparent, and know so many of you. I don't speak differently to one audience than I do another. Who you see is who I am, and I've always been that way. I was raised that way, and feel that the most important thing on this election, I just cannot share with you that people need to get out and vote. My priorities are safety and law enforcement. It's what makes us be able to do the pathways, ride our bikes, everything that we enjoy, and for people to come here and live. It's also important that you become educated, that you become knowledgeable about what would happen if we would put incorporation on the ballot. And the other is flood mitigation. We have 3 or 4 different areas in our hometown that this last Harvey, it was horrific. And we need to, it's our responsibility to take that upon us. And then what has been said is mobility. Traffic is a concern for all of us who live here in this community. My name is Ann Snyder. I'm running for position 6, and I ask for your consideration and your vote October 21st through November 1st at Montgomery County is the South County Community Center, and if you're in Creekside Park, it is at Lone Star Tomball. November 5th is Election Day in your precinct. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rochelle.
Thank you, Tom, for reminding me of my slogan, which is a choice for a change, and no special interest, just yours. Again, I've got 34 years in the federal government, 19 years with the U.S. Department of Commerce and Exporting, but I also had time in the Department of Transportation. I left out something I was thinking about with transportation as well, and that was I was asked by the Bicycle Coalition here in the Woodlands what I thought of the township plan. There is a plan. Apparently, it's been in place since 15 or 16, and I don't believe it's been moved on. And I looked it over. I didn't look in depth, but there are parts that can be moved on. There are parts I think probably not. We have to take into account safety. So I would say, in conclusion, what I bring to this position is having worked in jobs where I've had to analyze feasibility studies, I've had to look at budgets, environmental assessments, environmental impact statements. And I've always done that with complete objectivity because that's what you have to do in the federal government. I mean, you treat everybody equally. You don't have any special interest, which, I mean, you don't. You just do the right thing. And I will tell you that there were times when I came upon a study and I was reading the preliminary studies, and when I got to the end, the conclusion was exactly opposite of what happened at the beginning, and there was no justification for that conclusion. And I objected, and fortunately, my bosses backed me up, and we did the right thing. So that's what I'm going to do, is do the right thing. And I'm looking to make the city as efficient and as effective as it can be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. These are your position 6 candidates. Thank you.
My wife and I have served both with our time and our resources. I have been honored and very humbly been recognized as a hometown hero. I've been recognized by Ernst & Young as a Entrepreneur of the Year finalist. And last year I was recognized by St. Children's Research Hospital with their Lifetime Achievement Award for my community service and support for cancer research, not just at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, but also my support for cancer programs here in the Woodlands. I have 3 children who are all cancer survivors, all in their mid-20s, and they're very healthy today, all 38, 36 or older. And so that's a very important thing to me. I teach entrepreneurship at Sam Houston State University. I'm a mentor to the Entrepreneurship Club at College Park. I'm a mentor to the CEO program at Sam Houston State and the Entrepreneurship program at Sam Houston State. And I'm also a mentor to many young entrepreneur groups here in the Woodlands. My wife and I live in Creekside. We love living in the Woodlands. And I just believe that this is a great place to live, and we want to continue to help lead the Woodlands the way Mr. Mitchell's vision originally started it. Thank you.
Mr. Paskey.
Hi, good afternoon, Chamber. Thanks for putting on this forum so we can all kind of present our vision for the Woodlands moving forward. I'm David Cassidy. I'm, of course, running for position 7. I've been in and around this area my entire life. I was born in Houston. I got a business degree from Sam Houston State University. While I was there, I was lucky enough to meet my would-be future wife and take her to the 1987 McCullough High School prom. She moved here in 1985. After school, we lived in Houston Heights. I was very active there on the Heights Association Board. I was a board member there for 5 years. We faced a lot of the similar situations you had, albeit at a smaller scale, but reforestation, deed restrictions, security, promoting our schools, working with all sorts of outside agencies. We worked classroom by classroom to build up our schools. We worked block by block to improve the quality of life in our community. I was very intricately involved in all of that, and we did such a good job there in the Heights that I priced myself right out of the neighborhood. We moved to the Woodlands and haven't looked back. My wife got to be closer to her family, her sister, her mother and father, and we got to raise our 2 daughters here. My first job out of college was in the service industry, where I helped manage multi-million-dollar organizations. The main thing I gained from that was a focus on service and a focus on efficiency. I think both of those are important. My wife and I have been in real estate investment, and we've bought many properties and flipped them. And now I'm in healthcare here in the Woodlands. I'm the only candidate who works locally in healthcare, and that's one of the pillars of our community. And I think we should build on that. I thank you for your time and your consideration. I'd ask you to consider me for Township Position 7. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leszewski. Can you school me on how to say that?
Sure will. Leszewski.
Leszewski. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Walt Leszewski, and I'm running for position 7. I'm a 30-year resident of the Woodlands, and I'm a proud Navy veteran. I've been married for 43 years. We have 2 grown children, and we have 2 grandchildren. I worked 35 years, in the engineering and construction business. And when I retired 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to give back to the community and use some of my business skills to help preserve our community in George Mitchell Station. I watch over our covenants and standards as chairman of the Development Standards Committee. I oversee water and drainage issues on the MUN 1 board, and I'm an active member of the Panther Creek Village Association, where I'm yearly involved in the activities such as the 4th of July parade every year. I also participating in the flea market, which is this Saturday, so I hope everybody's there for that. I do Habitat for Humanity, and I also am involved in other activities on a yearly basis. You know, one of the most important things I want to say, though, is I am not a politician and I don't report to politicians. I'm running for this position because I feel like that I have the experience with my business background. I have the skills to do it. I have the temperament to do it. And one of the most important things is I have the time to do this job. Over the last 2.5 years, we've been consumed in this community, with incorporation. I think there's been millions of dollars have been spent on gathering a lot of information, and I think you need to hear from each one of us where we stand. Personally, I am against incorporation, and you'll hear more about that later, but I think I'm qualified for this position, and I'd like to have you vote.
Thank you. Mr. Dubois.
Hi, my name is Andy Dubois. I'm running for position 7 on the Woodlands Township Board. I've lived here 20 years. Moved up here on my daughter's first birthday back in 1999, and I've lived here continuously ever since. Raised my daughter. She's now a senior at the University of Arkansas. She just took her GRE, and she's hoping to get into PA school somewhere. I have a son who's an 17-year-old senior at the Woodlands High School. I have a stepson who's an 18-year-old senior at the Woodlands High School, and a stepdaughter who's a 13-year-old 7th grader at McCullough. I value this community. I value what it's meant to me and my family through the years, and I hope to raise my kids raise their children here, so I have grandchildren here. I spent almost 20 years here covering this community, government, politics, business, infrastructure, all the nonprofits, all the community events, as editor and executive editor of the local paper, the Woodlands Villager, the Courier of Montgomery County. In 2018, had an opportunity to go work for Commissioner James Nowak in Precinct 3, handling precinct projects. I took the challenge. It was a new opportunity. After a quarter of a century in the newspaper business, I decided it was time to try something else, and I've enjoyed my time there. Over the past couple of years, watched as this incorporation push has developed, and you know, they're primed to put it on the ballot next year. You've got 4 sitting board members who are not up for re-election who want to get this on the ballot. It's not too early to make a decision on whether or not you support incorporation. All the studies are done. They're going to present the second law enforcement study coming up October 17th and 23rd. If you're not educated on it, I recommend you get educated. You speak to individuals who are educated. I'm not afraid to take a stance on it. I've been open about my opposition to rushed incorporation, and later on during this forum, I'll explain why. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to start the first question with Mr. Cassidy. Why are you running for the board of directors, and what do you hope to accomplish as a member?
The only reason I'm running for the board of directors is just because I'm civic-minded. I don't have anyone behind me that's trying to push me, that's trying to advocate for one position or another. I don't have any big money. I was a Boy Scout, and the thing that I took away from that is you always leave the campground better than you found it. And that's just the way I think that we should approach things. I think I bring a skill set, I think I bring fresh ideas, I think I bring an outside perspective that can help our township. We've got challenges ahead of us, and I'm optimistic, I'm eternally optimistic that our best days are ahead of us. I want to be involved in that, I want to work across any kind of lines and make this community better. This is where I raise my children, this is where I want them to raise their children. I believe that we can be not just the 4th best in the nation, not the 7th best in the nation. I think we can be, when historians look back, shining light of what a 21st century community should be. And I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and get to work and be honest with the community, take a hard look at everything, be objective with things, and have discussions and let us move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Luchesky, same question. Why are you running for the board of directors, and what do you hope to accomplish as a member?
When I decided to give back to the community, I wanted to get on various boards that I could make an impact. I didn't want to just put my name out there. I wanted to be actively involved. And when I look over the last 2.5 years and I see the amount of time and efforts that has been put on in corporation, there's a lot of things I think that are been missing out there. I'm very concerned about a lot of the concerns that our residents have expressed in the resident surveys that are generated. I'm very concerned about flooding. I'm very concerned about subsidence. I'm very concerned about the amount of water that's being taken out of the aquifers that we have. I'm also very concerned about mobility, and that isn't just adding another lane out there. That's looking at alternative transportation. How do we do things differently out there? How do we get from point A to point B without just using a car? There's a 2016 study out there that should be utilized, and it hasn't been, and I'd like to be able to do that. And also the other thing is public safety. You know, we seem to live in a bubble in this community. We think that everything that happens outside, when you hear about school shootings, when you hear about workplace violence, when you hear about church attacks, that won't ever happen here. Well, it can happen here. And I think that's one of the concerns that the residents have, and that's one of the things that I want to work on also. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeWalt.
Sure. I'm running to protect our services and amenities in the Woodlands. I think they're being threatened by incorporation. Our costs are going to be driven up, meaning we're going to have higher taxes, and we're not going to get any more services or benefits from them. We have exceptional fire service in this community, and we claim for supplemental law enforcement, and it works great. We have the best parks, the best pools, and the best pathways. We need to continue to keep it that way. In terms of the cost of incorporation, law enforcement, no matter which study you look at, whether we go the route of contracting back with the county, whether we look at a hybrid police department or a full police department, it's going to cost us more money without any more law enforcement officers. Road maintenance, they've already decided it's too costly to create our own public works department. That was at the last session. So now they're going to contract back with the county for the same services that we already pay county taxes for. The MUDs, they're not going to take in the MUDs because it's too expensive to the residents who live in the older communities when they offset the cost from the infrastructure debt in the newer communities. So we're not going to have responsibility over the MUDs, and therefore the water and sewer or the drainage associated with MUDs. We're not going to take on road maintenance, so how are we going to have sovereignty over our roads and the drainage ditches if we're not going to take over that road maintenance? So what is the benefit of incorporation?
Mrs. Miller.
I'm running not because I'm a politician, I'm running because people over the last 3 years have asked me to serve the community in a different way by serving on the township board. I felt like that it was a time in my life when I was prepared and ready to do that. I'm also running because I have 25 to 30 years of successfully leading businesses through recessions and good times, and I've done that through a very fiscal, conservative approach, and I've done it in a manner that has employed hundreds of people and allowed them to keep their jobs during tough times. I believe, yes, we need to protect the Woodlands, but I'm running because I believe more importantly than me, that I believe you need to have a voice in what happens in the future of the Woodlands. And I believe we're facing decisions that are important for the next few years and years to come. And I believe that we need to be relayers of information as a board, and we need to make sure that the residents know what the opportunities and options are, what the cost and benefit is, and then the residents deserve to decide whether they want to make a decision on incorporation next year or 5 years from now. As far as incorporation is concerned, incorporation's been on the ballot for the last 2 elections. If you look at the candidates that ran against incorporation, they were all handily defeated at each election cycle, okay? But at the end of the day, it's the residents that need to understand what the cost is and what the benefit is, and they need to be the people that make that decision, not people serving on the board as volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Luszewski, this question will go to you first. What are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
Well, I think the 2 biggest issues out there is, I think we need to stop the amount of money we're spending on incorporation. I think there's a lot of other very pertinent things that are facing this community. I think the residents have spoken. If you look at the resident surveys, you know, what they're concerned about. They're concerned about mobility, they're concerned about overdevelopment, they're concerned about public safety. And those are the things that we need to look at. Also, it was brought up earlier by one of the candidates when it talks about the way that the board is structured right now and the way that you have so much outside influence by parties, and that it's turned into more of a partisan type board than I think what it really needs to be to govern this community. We should be nonpartisan. We shouldn't be influenced by outside interests.
Thank you. Mr. Dubois, I'll repeat the question. What are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
Sure, big ones in corporations, and Bob's exactly right. The board can't decide. We've got 4 city board members going up for re-election who are shoving incorporation down your throat. At every session now, it seems like a propaganda machine promoting incorporation. Fortunately, we have some residents out here, and he's sitting here, who get up and let their voices be heard, who are educated on the topic. Incorporation is the biggest issue facing us. And also, of course, the budget. People are concerned about the budget, about flattening sales tax revenue. Yes, this board has benefited from incredible growth, okay? Since 2013, we've had a 55% increase in the taxable property value, okay? And frankly, our tax rate, our property tax rate has decreased about 28%, okay? So we've had definite growth in that. Appraisals of our homes have gone up 30%. We need to make it affordable to live here. The average age of a home buyer in Woodlands now is 53. We certainly need to make it affordable for the younger parents who want to move to this community. So we've got to get that budget right. We have to ensure that we have money set aside for fire. We have infrastructure. We have fire departments that need improvements. We have to have that. We need a new fire company in the west side of the Woodlands. We have to ensure that we fund that and the apparatus that goes with it. So budget and incorporation are the 2 big issues facing us.
Thank you. Mr. Milner, what are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
So I think those issues are, of course, incorporation, because that's what's on everybody's mind and that's what everybody seems to talk about. I also think that we need to think about our budget moving into the future and how we manage our budget versus our income and our responsibilities moving forward. And that can or cannot be part of incorporation. I think the other thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we focus on our law enforcement, our fire departments, our EMS, so that we can continue to have the safe community that we currently have. We have the highest rated fire department in the country. They recently scored what is probably the highest score in their ISO rating in their most recent exam. We also have the highest law enforcement penetration population of any community in the county. I think that's very important for the residents of the Woodlands. I think that's something that they want. The other thing that I think that we need to focus on is mobility. Mobility is a big issue for us. How do we manage mobility around the Woodlands as opposed to through it? And I think there are ways that we can work with the county, that we can work with all of the other agencies to manage traffic flow in ways that it doesn't create undue traffic pressure on the residents inside the Woodlands who live here. There are ways to do that, and I think we need to collaborate more with county, state, and other local agencies on ways to find ways to mitigate that traffic challenge.
Thank you. Mr. Cassidy, what are the main issues that the Woodlands Township will need to contend with in the next 2 years?
Thank you. I think there's really 5 main issues, and I hope I don't go all Rick Perry here. But there's traffic, there's flooding, there's leadership, there's budget, and then there's incorporation. What form of government we're going to have. That's kind of foundational. We need to get that off the plate and make a decision so we can move forward, because we spend all of our time talking about how we should govern ourselves. We're not spending as much time as we should actually governing ourselves. On flooding, I think the board needs to take a more serious stand, more active stand. Montgomery County is wavering on what they want to do with retention ponds and detention ponds, and I think we need to take a firm stance on that. There was a study that took forever to go forward because they're not funding. The Woodlands Board wouldn't put any money towards it. I think we should have been a little bit more active in that, considering the amount of our budget and the importance of that. With traffic, we're going to continue to have pressure from outside. Outside our community is going to keep their explosive growth going on, and inside we're going to stay about the same. So the political leeway that we have now is just gonna decrease over time. We need to be, working actively on proactive plans. I think the Woodlands Loop is a good idea. On, leadership, and Dr. Snyder talked about, that we need to be looking at that seriously, looking at how we're going to reimburse the new president, general manager of the township. And, I want to work together to try to work through all these issues or consequential issues, and hope you'll consider them. Thank you.
Thank you. Third and final question to Mr. Dubois first. I know we talked about this. Do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing so?
So, I am opposed to incorporation. I don't think we should rush it. Protected through the RPA through 2057 and really forever after, based on the legislation passed in 2017 and 2019. I heard it earlier, we need to incorporate because we need to become autonomous. I think that's a terrible idea. I think our great leaders through the years in this community have worked with other leaders throughout the county, region, state, and at the federal level to make this the greatest community in the world. And we need to keep it that way. We need to work with our county leaders to ensure that we do not have unwanted cut-through traffic by getting these roads that we don't want off the major thoroughfare plan, such as Branch Crossing. Branch Crossing is a connector road. They're looking at a major thoroughfare on the major thoroughfare plan. It's not going to happen. Stonebridge Church is over there. You have to cut through Stonebridge Church to get to Old Conroe Road. Not going to happen. Woodlands Parkway, well, Riley started constructing, aiming at Mansion's Way to the south. The development company has property there. We need to work with our county leaders to remove those roads and work on mobility within the community. We need to work with the SJRA, the MUDs, and the county on drainage. Okay, the Woodlands has a great drainage system. We need to make sure that our surrounding areas aren't pushing water this way. And we already pay taxes to the MUDs, to the county, and we pay fees to the SJRA for flood mitigation and drainage. All right, we don't need to pay another taxing entity to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Milner, do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing so?
So I think at the end of the day, it's up to the people on whether or not we should incorporate. Are there advantages? There are some protection advantages. There are some potential revenue advantages. Andy talked about the Branch Crossing Road, the Gosling Road extension. I think if the county would agree to take them off of their current mobility plan, which I just got last week from the county, that there might be less pressure from residents and or people who serve on the township board to even consider incorporation. But since it's still on the mobility plan, the coffees I go to in people's homes, the village association meetings I go to, it's very important to them. Windsor Hills does not want Gosling to be cut through the western side of their community to connect all the way to 105. They don't want Branch Crossing, which shows on this mobility plan, to go all the way north of 1097. They also don't want what Commissioner Rowley has now moved to Mansion Way to create a traffic bottleneck at 2978, which will force traffic into the Woodlands Parkway extension inside the Woodlands. Yes, a development company owns that property, but if we were to incorporate, the road responsibility for that property would then fall under the city and not just the developer. So it would require a lot more collaboration on whether or not you could cut a road through those 88 acres. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cassidy, do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing so?
So there are benefits and there are disadvantages to it for sure. The benefits are we'll have sovereignty over roads, under our roads, more teeth in our covenants, a bigger say at the Houston-Galveston Area Council. But at the end of the day, it's a value thing because all those things are going to cost more. So we need to look and see are the costs and the benefits going to be worthwhile. It's going to be a hard push to try to convince citizens that they need to change what they're doing when they like what we have and then also pay more in taxes for it. But I believe fundamentally at the end of the day that self-government is something that the citizens should vote on. So as far as the board goes, if it's a reasonable prospect that we could incorporate, I think we should let the voters decide on that. They did, they'll decide on the tax rate and to incorporate or not. If it looks like it's not reasonable, it's going to be a Brexit kind of a thing where let's see about doing it, and once we get the process going, we can't do it. I don't want to push that forward. but I think it's fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the voters, and we need to educate them, and I trust the voters.
Thank you. This question, do you feel the township should incorporate, and what are the advantages and disadvantages?
As I told you, I'm not a politician, so you're probably not supposed to do this, but I do agree with everything Andy said. So, I am not for incorporation at all either. It doesn't make any sense to me. The original concept, or the original concerns of annexation, are no longer there. The concerns about the Woodlands Parkway extension are no longer there. When you look at it from a business standpoint, you say, what's not working now? We have the fourth best city in the country. We have the best fire department. We have some of the very best schools in the country. We have the best parks and recreation. So why do we want to change things? Things are working. If you put your business hat back on, if you were running this as a business and some of your people walked in and said, hey, I want to just spend $1.5 million to prove to you that, maybe we're not as good as we think we are, but you have to say to yourself, why is that person even working for us? There's no reason for us to incorporate now. It's not going to get us anything better than what we have.
Thank you. We'll now do candidates' closing statements. We'll start with Andy Dubois.
I'll start with the last one. This too?
Yeah, start first with the closing statement.
Okay. All right. I'm Andy Dubois. I'm running for position 7 on the board. I didn't ask for anybody's permission or blessing to run. I don't have the support of any of the PACs or the BAC. I did earn the support of Montgomery County Treasurer Melanie Bush, Montgomery County Tax Assessor Collector Tammy McCray, former County Judge Alan V. Sadler, and of course Commissioner James Noack, who I work for. But nonetheless, the other 3, I've worked with them for years. Worked with Melanie when she was in private business, as well as on the Conroe ISD board. Worked with Tammy McCray, both when I was a journalist and now in the county. They respect me for my knowledge and experience with county, with infrastructure, with government, with business, with fiscal responsibility, and in understanding the value of limited government. I'm running because the township does not need to incorporate. It's unnecessary government growth. It's going to cost taxpayers money. All right, the residents can't afford that. Our residents are our business owners, our local business owners. We need to protect them. We need to protect our kids' future and our grandkids and their grandkids. That's why I'm running. Our services are fire and our amenities, parks, pools, pathways. That's what we're responsible for. I want to keep focused on that. I don't want to expand our government without unnecessarily needing to. And basically, that's the reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bogner.
So I'm running for the township board because I believe there's a lot of important decisions that should be made by the residents in the future. Okay, I believe the residents deserve the right to be informed, have all the information, and then they need to make a decision on their future. They had that same opportunity in 2010 when we made the transition from being an HOA to our current township structure. I believe the residents should decide, based on all of the information that's presented to them, do they want to incorporate? Does the cost balance the benefits? Is it worth it to them? If it isn't, then we shouldn't incorporate. If it is, then the residents deserve the right to incorporate. I'm running because I can bring a fiscal conservative approach to budgeting. I believe I don't make decisions in my business based on my gut or my heart. I make them based on information and data. And I'm running because I believe decisions that impact you and every resident in this community should be based on valid information and not the passion, the heart, or the gut of someone that's involved in the issue. That's why I'm running for the township board for position 7. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David Cassidy.
Thank you. Thank you to the chamber again for having us. Ernest Hemingway once wrote that everyone will be broken, and sometimes they will be stronger at the broken places. We're not broken, far from it, but we have consequential decisions and consequential challenges ahead of us. And as we face these, I want to make sure that not only do we make good decisions, and get good resolutions to our challenges. But the method that we use to reach those decisions is something that's honorable. That's what will make us stronger. We can choose to argue and be partisan and to be tribal, or we can choose to work together and build bridges. We can choose to let outside influences affect how we go forward, or we can choose to listen to the voice of the residents. I have proposed some audacious plans for us. I think we should have things like a winery on the waterway, 2 more hotels. I think we should bring the trolleys out to the village centers. I think we should have a level 1 trauma center. I think we should have a tier 1 university present here. Something that's near and dear to my heart is I think we should have a Ronald McDonald House. I think we need someone with a vision to look towards the future. I've always said that, you know, if you want to reach to the stars, first you've got to look up. We've got to stop the bickering. We need to have a vision forward. Can I do all that stuff? No. But you have to have political vision. You've got to have leadership, and working together collaboratively with the chamber, with the Woodlands Area Economic Development Partnership, with Visit the Woodlands, with the developers, with the residents. We can do these kinds of things, and we must do these kinds of things. We can work with our medical community. We can work with our education community. We can build on what we have and have a much better tomorrow. If that sounds good to you, please consider voting for me. Thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for being here today. You know, when my wife and I drove into the Woodlands 30 years ago, we saw that famous sign that said, "Coming soon to Woodlands Mall." And we laughed at one another and said, "I bet we'll never see that in our lifetime." But when we went to the information center, we found out what this community was really about. And we found out what the vision was of this community and what the schools were like. And we said, this is where we need to live. All of my opponents have told you that they want to protect the vision of George Mitchell. And what I can tell you, I'm the only one that's on governing boards that actually affects that, and is not only looking at protecting that vision, but also changes that will affect that vision in the future. If you look at flooding, I'm the only one that has gone to the Drainage Task Force meetings for the last 2 years, and I'm not even on the task force. I'm also the only one that went to Austin with other MUD directors to voice our opinion to the Texas Water Board directors on the management plan that the Lone Star Groundwater District had. And when you also look at being on the DSC board, we're looking at things that Mr. Mitchell never even thought about. Some that we worked for the last 1.5 years on changing the standards on issues that are facing us now and that are going to be facing us in the future. We looked at short-term rentals, which is something that was never even considered back then. We have things in place now for redevelopment, not only from the commercial property standpoint, but from the residential standpoint also. And those are the issues that we're working on, and I'm the only one that has been actively involved in that. So my name is Walt Leszewski again, and then I'm running for position 7, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. These are your position 7 candidates. I want to thank everybody for being here.
Before we do that, I want to let's have a round of applause from the Cole Gross Community Impact. And also to thank all of our candidates that attended today as well. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming today and taking part in this forum. I also want to thank our staff member, Margot McZeal, putting this together. She's over our Business Advocacy Council and Government Affairs. And Melissa Boucher, you guys did a phenomenal job. You know, so thank you all very much for being here. And I would like to mention that the Chamber has taken a position in support of the Conroe ISD school bond. If you'd like to take the yard sign home, and don't forget to vote. Again, early voting is October 21st. If you'd like to celebrate voting with us, we have Business Votes Day on October 29th, and we do voter ballet. So if you want to get transported to the South County, Montgomery County Community Center and vote, and pass all the electioneering. No offense, guys, but go in and vote. Our record, I think, is 5 minutes from the front door of the chamber to voting to get to the back. So we do it very, very quickly. And then at 4 o'clock on October 29th at Mahoney's Texas Bar and Grill at the Waterway, we will have our party after the poll. So you bring your I voted sticker, not more than one, to Mahoney's, and that is your ticket into the door. You also get a free drink, and we will have 2 Olympians, Cassidy Cook and Laura Wilkerson, our local Olympic gold medal winners in diving will be there. And then we'll also have the Will Carter Bands. That's on October 29th at Mahoney's at 4 p.m. So again, thank you all for being here.